The money you pay for a coffee today was a man's weekly wage in the Middle Ages. But here's the real madness. That man wasn't spending the money on coffee. He was spending it on the cinnamon inside the coffee. Now think about it. What was more valuable, gold or a handful of black pepper? The answer will surprise you. Black pepper. Because money doesn't talk, history does. And history teaches us this. Real power comes not from owning the land, but from owning the roads that pass over it. In the 1200s, Venice didn't produce a single spice in the world. It didn't grow pepper in India. It didn't have a single worker harvesting nutmeg in Indonesia. So how did it become Europe's wealthiest city? Because it controlled the bottleneck. Venice's strategy was simple but terrifying. The only point that spices from the Indian Ocean had to pass through to enter Europe was the Venetian port. Arab merchants, Egyptian intermediaries, Indian farmers. Everyone took their cut, but who made the real profit? Venice, which produced nothing but controlled the gateway through which everything passed. By the time spices reached Venice from their source, their prices had increased 100-fold. While farmers earned pennies, Venetian merchants were building marble palaces. This was one of the clearest examples of value extraction in history. And the system worked flawlessly, until it didn't. This is the very heart of modern economics. Amazon doesn't manufacture its own products, but owns the distribution network. Google doesn't create information, but controls the search engine. Money doesn't talk, history does. And history tells us the same game has been played for centuries. The more Venice raised prices, the more desperate Europe became. And in the 1400s, Portugal said, "We won't pay Venice. We'll go straight to the source." Vasco da Gama's voyage wasn't a discovery. It was a cost optimization. When he arrived in Calcutta in 1498, he was shocked. There were no dragons, no mysterious monsters, just spices stacked in open warehouses selling cheap. So Venice had been robbing Europe for centuries by creating artificial scarcity. Indian merchants had been trading pepper for ages. Only Europe was living under the illusion of scarcity. What did Portugal do? Did it politely start trading? Of course not. It blockaded ports, raided ships, bombarded cities. It didn't want to join the spice trade, it wanted to seize it. Within decades, Portuguese fleets built fortresses along the coasts of Africa, Arabia, and India, captured critical points like Malacca, turned the Indian Ocean into a militarized marketplace. Every ship needed Portuguese documentation. What does this story tell us today? This: controlling a supply chain is more powerful than having an army. Because an army uses force, but a supply chain creates dependency. But Portugal's empire was too small to hold the system forever. From the north came a new rival with sharper instincts, more capital, and far less patience: the Dutch. In 1602, the Dutch East India Company, VOC, was founded. This wasn't just a company. It owned a government, not was one. It could declare war, sign treaties, mint money, govern territory, issue death sentences. The Dutch approached the problem differently. They didn't just want to seize ports, they wanted to industrialize control. The VOC was a company with shareholders, dividends, legal rights, and critically, the authority to wage war. It was the world's first multinational corporation, and it had state power. So what was its target? The Banda Islands. Because nutmeg grew only there in the world. Nutmeg was one of Europe's most coveted spices. It was believed to cure plague, stomach ailments, even insomnia. The VOC solution was ruthless. It massacred the local population, enslaved the survivors, filled the islands with imported workers who could be controlled, declared every nutmeg tree, every shipment, every seed company property. This wasn't trade, it was exploitation, and it turned Amsterdam into the world's financial center. The VOC paid high dividends, attracted global investors, and traded shares on the world's first stock exchange. Modern finance was born here, fed by spices and sustained by violence. England watched and learned. The British East India Company adopted the same model, conquered Bengal, manipulated Indian rulers, and used regional control to dominate tea, textiles, and spices. Over time, the company no longer served the British Empire. It became the empire's engine. Today is no different. Big corporations no longer seize nutmeg islands, but they control data centers, patent rights, logistics networks. Money doesn't talk. History does. And it tells us that monopoly power never disappeared, it just shapeshifted. By the 1700s, the spice trade had created a machine. International corporations, overseas armies, financial networks. So what would this machine do? It started processing other commodities. Sugar was the first product the world consumed like a modern addiction. Cheap calories, quick profit, unlimited demand. European tastes exploded and created what historians now call the first mass consumption good. And unlike pepper, sugar grew extraordinarily well in the Caribbean and coastal Brazil. Suddenly, the center of global wealth began shifting west. But if sugar was the fuel, forced labor was the engine. Plantations became industrial machines. European powers fought over Caribbean islands, not for land, but for monopoly. Jamaica, Barbados, Saint Domingue. Their value came entirely from a crop that could be converted to money faster than any other commodity of the age. And incredible fortunes emerged from this system. Sugar didn't enrich Europe. It created an economic gravity powerful enough to make the Atlantic world revolve around it. European merchant dynasties built mansions, banks, and political careers using wealth extracted from these plantations. London, Bristol, Amsterdam, Nantes exploded in size. Port infrastructure, insurance companies, and early investment houses grew from this trade. America's story begins here. While Eurasian spices built the machine of global trade, American products turned it into a self-feeding cycle. Sugar for European demand, silver from Mexico and Peru for Asian markets, tobacco for the continent's exploding consumer base. The New World wasn't just a destination, it became a hinge, a pivot point connecting Europe, Africa, and Asia into a single economic orbit. When Alexander Hamilton later built America's financial system on powerful banks, manufacturing, and global trade, he wasn't creating something from scratch. He was simply connecting a young nation to an already existing global network. Patterns built on monopolies, commodity flows, and corporate power, starting with pepper and cinnamon and evolving into something far more complex. Look at the world today: semiconductor factories, the Suez Canal, cobalt mines, cloud servers, satellite networks. They all follow the same principle: control the road, control the world. If Venice controlled a sea route, today companies control data centers. If the Dutch East India Company monopolized spices, today's giants monopolize software, logistics, cloud infrastructure. The tools have changed, the logic hasn't. And here's the irony. The first global economy wasn't built on stability. It was built on friction. The harder it was to obtain a commodity, the more valuable it became. Pepper, nutmeg, cinnamon, sugar. Their real power wasn't flavor. It was leverage. It gave small nations the ability to act like empires and companies to act like governments. History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes with alarming precision. The first global economy taught us that wealth follows those who dominate the bottlenecks, and whether the commodity is pepper or data, the rule remains the same. Control the road, control the world. Old money.